What's up guys, my name is Ace, and when it comes to Call of Duty Vanguard, it's quite easy to pick out a lot of the negative, but today I wanted to focus a bit on the positive side of things, and specifically pull out a handful of elements that I actually really like that Vanguard introduced, and that I would like to see return at least in some form in future Call of Duty games. Now, of course, my list for things that I'd rather not see return from Vanguard is a much longer list, and I've talked about that pretty extensively in the past. I can link a video in the description down below if you guys want to see more on that side of things. And I also know that there's already going to be a bunch of people typing comments saying nothing. I hope nothing returns from Vanguard. But I really do feel like there's at least a small handful of elements that were positive changes, and I'd love to see them return with Modern Warfare 2 and maybe even beyond. And diving right into this, one element that I really like from Call of Duty Vanguard, something that they introduced that I would love to see return in the future, is the way that they introduced operators and their progression as well as their favorite weapon. Especially since they started doing seasonal levels that just reset with every season, so many of us just stopped caring about player level entirely. It's nice to have that extra layer of something to progress toward while you're playing the game, even if it was fairly basic, where you essentially just play with that character for a certain period of time and you'll eventually max out their level. Going along with that, I also like the fact that operators had a favorite weapon, and if you use that combination of that operator with that particular weapon, you would get bonus weapon XP for using that weapon. And I just thought that was interesting and added that little bit of an extra layer of complexity when it comes to overall progression in the game. And it's something I'd love to see return and perhaps even improved on and iterated on with Modern Warfare 2. As for the next thing on my list, this is going to be a really quick section, but this is a very important feature to console players, or at least a lot of console players I'm sure really appreciate this new feature. This is the telemetry on your screen while you're actually playing the game. So on the top left of my screen in the gameplay here, you can see latency as well as packet loss, and there are other options that I could turn on as well, but those are the two main ones that I like to see as a console player. And this is something that we've never really seen before on console for Call of Duty. We've always had to either pull up the leaderboard mid-game in older Call of Duty games, or in more recent ones, we had to actually press start, going to the menu, tab over, just to see what our ping was in the game. And I just love the fact that as I'm playing, if I feel like something weird just happened in the game, I can take a really quick glance up to the top left of my screen and I can see, oh yeah, I've got packet loss right now. Or wow, I'm actually on a really high ping, I didn't realize that. And that's just so much better than being kept in the dark or requiring you to open up menus and tab over just to see what your ping in the game is. So this right here is a feature that I hope we see in every single Call of Duty game going forward. I really don't want to go back to how it was previously. As for the next thing on my list here, this is something I have discussed quite often when it comes to Modern Warfare 2, and this is something that I feel was a big improvement over Modern Warfare that Vanguard did. This is Destructible Doors. Now, I say this every time, I'd prefer not having doors at all in Call of Duty's multiplayer experience, at least like the regular 6v6 multiplayer. I'd rather not have doors, but if they insist on having them, I love the fact that in Vanguard, they are fully destructible. You can either shoot through them to create a small crack that you can look through, and then you can just pick anybody off that's camping on the other side of that. Or if you shoot it enough or throw an explosive at it or something, the entire door is gone, and it's gone for the rest of the match. And assuming Modern Warfare 2 is also going to have doors, which I think it is pretty safe to assume, then I really hope that there's at least some destructibility to them. Even if they're going to be metal doors so you can't shoot them the same way as wood doors, at least let us blow them up or blow them off their hinges with an explosive so we have the ability to get rid of the doors completely if we choose. But then let's move on to the next thing on my list here, and this isn't something that's necessarily 100% brand new with Vanguard, like never seen in the Call of Duty franchise, but I do feel like it's something very rare with the franchise, and we haven't really seen it in recent years. This is a separate ranked play section with multiplayer that shows an actual skill rating, or like an ELO score for you, and that has some proper transparency when you're moving up or moving down that skill rank. This is something that should absolutely be a standard for Call of Duty, at least in my opinion, with how much investment they have into CDL. I thought it was horrible that in Modern Warfare 2019, we didn't even get a proper ranked mode. We just got a playlist, which didn't really give us any ranking attached to it. It's just so you could play with the competitive rule sets. And then from Cold War, from the little bit I remember, I don't believe it showed any sort of an ELO score or anything like that. And it looked like a lot of the divisions were really arbitrary, or you just didn't really understand why you were placed where you were placed. And it just didn't feel like a proper ranked play system. Unlike Vanguard, which I feel has actually done quite a good job with their ranked play system. But finally, on my list of elements that I'd like to see return at least in some form in future Call of Duty games, including Modern Warfare 2, this is combat pacing, or at least the general idea of combat pacing. I do still feel like it needs some work, and it's not in a perfect place, it's not in the best place that it can be in, but I do feel like, especially combined with the quick play system, there is some merit to being able to choose a more traditional 6v6 style system, as well as a higher player count system for a more chaotic experience. Now, when Vanguard launched, we had 3 different options. We had Tactical, Assault, and Blitz, and I think 3 options was a mistake, and they have learned from that mistake. They removed Assault from that. Now we just have the 2 different options, and I feel like that's how it should be going forward. Also, when it comes to combat pacing, something that I feel should maybe be improved on a little bit, I really feel like it shouldn't be a suggestion, and instead it should be a true filter. So if I filter specifically for tactical modes, I should only get tactical modes, and on the other end of that, if I filter for Blitz, I should only get Blitz, and if I filter for all, I should get either one. I'm totally fine with that, even if it increases matchmaking times a bit. I do understand that I'd be limiting my lobby options by selecting one or the other rather than both, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make to get the experience that I'm looking for. So when it comes to combat pacing, I'm in no way saying that it's perfect in its current state and it should just be implemented as is into Modern Warfare 2. But I like the idea of it because it essentially lets the player choose what kind of pacing they want in the match, while also still giving them the power to choose the specific game mode that they want to play. Because if you look at the old school ground war, I'm talking pre-Modern Warfare ground war, where it was like 9v9 or whatever the player count was, in that traditional style of ground war, it was always a mosh pit where it'd be like team deathmatch and domination and kill confirmed. You couldn't pick a specific game mode that you wanted to play with a higher player count. You had to roll the dice with that mosh pit. So that is one big positive with combat pacing. And then I also just wanted to mention, I feel this is far superior to what Modern Warfare 2019 did, where they had 6v6 and 10v10. And while there was some overlap, they did sort of have a separate map pool. And I feel like that just splits up the resources unnecessarily, and I'd rather have a unified map pool where everybody's playing all the same maps and all of the developer attention is going into the same pool of maps, but then on top of that, players can just choose how chaotic they want the match to be. So that's why I'd love to see combat pacing or something very similar to it return in Modern Warfare 2, but perhaps with some improvements. I just feel like this is an area where Vanguard does deserve some credit for trying something new, and I think they've got something there, it just needs iteration. And with that, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video on the top elements that Vanguard introduced that I would love to see carried forward into Modern Warfare 2 and beyond. And this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First up, do you guys agree with this list, or are there any things on this list that you disagree with and you don't want to see return to Modern Warfare 2? And then on top of that, are there any other elements that Vanguard introduced that you would like to see return for the next Call of Duty game? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.